So I have the privilege of introducing Sherry, who is amazing. You may have seen her once doing the feature talk at the ISSA members dinner. What was that, 2 years ago? And you've spoken here 2 or 3 times. And you have a book that was written about you called Alien? Something like that? No, the alien is your... yes, breaking and entering, yes. Anyway, Sherry is going to come up and have the privilege of introducing your featured speaker, Tom.
Hello. I'm so excited to introduce Tom, and now you don't have to memorize his bio. Tom is the penetration testing team manager for LMG, and he is the best hacker I know. Uh-oh. He hacked my heart. He's won a bunch of things, including a black badge for DEF CON. What else have you won, Tom? Oh, there we go. With Brandon and SecDSM. Nice work, everybody. He's won ThoughtCon. Thank you. Keep feeding him. Wild West Hackin' Fest twice. Circle City Con 3 times, and another con. And nice work, Tom. And pretty much every day, Tom comes home and he's like, I got a printer. And then he'll come home the next day and be like, and I got into their cloud environment. And eventually he started showing our team how he jumps from the printer to full domain admin, to the cloud, and all over the place. And I'm so excited to watch his talk today. I think it's really cool, and I'll turn it over to Tom.
Thank you. Why, hello, everybody. I am so happy that you all came because all the stuff that I'm going to show you is literally from like the last 2 months. I could fill, lots and lots of reports with screenshots, and I have. But these are just so I'm going to show some things tonight about printers, and I hope after tonight you'll have a love of printers the way I have a love for printers. So like Sherry said, my name is Tom Pohl. You can find me at Tom Pohl or wherever social medias are sold. And I am an evil twin, and today I even played an evil twin. That was fun. And let's get started. And there I am, hard at work. That's at my home office in Missoula, Montana. I don't normally wear a hacker hoodie ever or sunglasses, but now James I just did this for James because he was looking for a new profile pic. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about why do we hack printers by first going, how we're going to get into printers, a whole bunch of different methods of how we're going to get passwords from printers, and then taking that beyond printers, and then at the very end that you want to stick around for is how do we fix this, right? So how do we make it so Tom can't get into all of the things? So it's kind of like a magician's never tell their secrets. I'm going to tell you everything. This is amazing. It's awesome. So first of all, a couple housekeeping things. Cell phones, you know the drill. About halfway through this presentation, you will feel the urge to say, I need to call somebody right now. That urge will pass. It'll be okay. Just take a deep breath and we'll continue on. Also, normally, and Sherry, when she gives presentations, with audience participation, she throws out rubber duckies. And apparently we're out of rubber duckies. And I said, we got shot glasses. Can I throw shot glasses? She's like, no. And then the team found these silicone shot glasses that are rubbery. And watch this. They don't break. So good audience participation in questions might get you a shot glass. So just saying. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, bro. So at any rate, so printers. How many of you on your corporate networks have printers? Hands. Those without hands raised, you're lying. I was at an organization just this week. They're like, I haven't seen a printer for years. And then we're walking down the hall, and I literally looked down through a doorway, and I said, there's one right there. So everybody's got printers. So if you've got printers, you've got some opportunity to hack printers. And by the way, if any of you standing around the sides and back, there's still 2 great seats up front. I call these the heckler seats. So feel free to make your way up front and have a seat front and center. Yeah. All right. So first first things first, how do we get into printers, right? So often you would think that, oh, they rolled in a printer, they hooked it up to the network, there's a username and password that it comes with. Every organization should change this username and password. Do you think, how many do? Maybe 10%, that's probably generous. But how do I know how to get in your printer? I Google the model number. So you go to the web page of the management interface, and it'll be like, this is a Konica Minolta, 4050 or N or whatever. And I'll go Google it, and it'll be like, here's the default credentials, admin password, or admin and nothing, or just hit the login button and you're in. And so once you're into the management interface, then it's game on. But sometimes you'll hit that login button, you put in the default credentials, and you know what'll happen? Authentication failure. So this here is an example of a Ricoh. Ricoh and Savin are very similar. So if you see Ricoh, you see Savin, often they're the same printer, just with different branding. What people do is like, oh, we changed the default credentials. You're not going to get anything. But did you know there's a second default credential on this printer called supervisor with no password? And do you know what? So you just click the login button after you type in supervisor, and then you get a management interface. So you know what? There's only one thing you can do with this management interface as supervisor. That's right. Change the administrator password. So you literally log in as supervisor, change the administrator password. I don't know what the old one is. If you're a professional penetration tester like I am, get permission before you change the password on the printer. I've never had a client say, no, you can't do that. They're like, yeah, good luck, is usually what they say. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'll let you know what the password is when we're done, and it'll be more secure, probably. And so I'll change the administrator password, and then you're in. So then I log in as administrator, and you've got all the configuration things that the printer has at your disposal. So this is actually a printer I saw, I don't know, maybe a month ago. A lovely printer. This is a Ricoh MPC 3004. It did actually had the default credentials changed, except for the supervisor default credentials. So that's how I got into this one. But so what are we going to do? Why are we trying to get into these? We're trying to steal passwords, right? So if you think about it, these printers log into our network resources. So when you go to the web interface, you can't just right-click view source, there's my password, because the printers are smart enough to not do that, right? And trust me, they'll if I was into firmware hacking, which I'm not, there's another gentleman here that Mr. Stark, if you're in the house, he's into firmware hacking. Me, not so much. I'm gonna abuse the web interface, because what happens? So if you do a backup of the printer configuration, the passwords will be in there, encrypted, and you don't have the key. So I've never been successful. I've decrypted some HP backups, and after I decrypted the backup, then I'm like, yes, I'm gonna have these clear text usernames and passwords. No, the password was still encrypted another way. And I'm like, so they really think that you can't get these. They've made it super secure. I'm sure if I was a better hardware, a firmware developer, I could probably go in there. They probably have a static key in the firmware that then I could use to decrypt the passwords, but I'm too lazy for that. So what I'm gonna do is show you some techniques that are called pass-back attacks. And this is where, instead of asking the printer for a password, I'm just gonna sit back and let the printer give me the password itself. So I don't have to ask for it. It's just going to give it to me out of the generosity of its heart. And so there's three main ways that I get passwords out of printers. There's LDAP, there's SMTP or email, and then there's file shares. And so I'll show you a couple examples of each one tonight. Screenshots and everything. I don't redact anything but client-related data, so you can't tell who this is from. So method number one is through LDAP. So have you ever had one of these printers that are configured on your network where you can walk up to the printer, type in your name, put a document on the feeder, hit the scan button, and it scans it in, and it magically sends it to your email box as a PDF, right? Probably a lot of you have that set up on your network. Well, in order for it to look up your email address, it's got to go to your Active Directory or your LDAP source. But basically, it's a directory to look up your email address. So it's going to log into the network and say, who's this Tom Pohl guy? Do you know his email? And be like, oh yeah, I know that guy's email. Here you go. And then the printer then can scan it and send you an email. So what's great about this, so this is an example of, this is actually in our hack lab. This is a Konica Minolta. What's great is this printer didn't require any authentication at all. I literally got to the web interface, and I go to the address book. And that address book had the Active Directory server. In this case, is hackme.local, where that's where the server is going to literally log in and look up email addresses. But what I do, because I'm evil, is I change that server address from the legitimate LDAP server, where I can look up email addresses, to my LDAP server. So this will be a server that I'm running, and I'm running an LDAP service, a fake one. And so because it's got to be able to talk that protocol. So it's not just like, hello, goodbye. You actually have to speak the language. And so in this particular case, I changed the server address to be my evil server address. And then there's, at the bottom of the page, there's this convenient test button. So with that test button, I just type in oh, let's look up the user test. And I hit search the address book, and I'm running a packet capture, and literally, I capture the packets of this transaction, and it'll say, sorry, that lookup failed. Like, the printer will be like, your LDAP server's broke. Doesn't work. You got bad passwords. But I don't. I just didn't know what your password was. And so with Wireshark here, you can see this is literally a machine account. You see the $ on the end of the username. So there's a username and a clear text. This is not a hash. This is not something that you can't use in certain ways. This is a straight up clear text, plain, user rememberable, sometimes password that then I can go use on your network. And so this is kind of technique number one, where you can go in, modify the address book lookup, put it to my server, hit the test button. Now I've got your password. Like, that easy. And all you have to do is sit there and listen for it. Technique number. Any questions, responses? Anybody feel the urge to call somebody right now yet? All right. Yeah, I see Reed's on the phone right now. Callers are standing by. So that one, in this particular case, this is so we give not webinars anymore, we're giving webinars. And so this is an Azure IP, I think. It was just a throwaway IP we spun up for the show off for the webinar. This particular case, it doesn't exist anymore. That's why I didn't redact it. Not anymore. I mean, and in fact, even when I ran it, I did it over, a secure tunnel and, all these things just to make sure that, it was our hack printer. Like, go use that. Oh, question? No, this one already didn't use SSL. This one is already, it's covered up, and I think in both screenshots. Oh yeah, right there. Use SSL/TLS was marked as none. So, so we don't want security. And if it was marked, use SSL, you know what I do? I turn it off. Turn it off. We don't need security. All right. So that's LDAP. Oh, question in the back. Sorry. Oh, that's a great idea. Can I repeat the questions? Yes. Did I need to turn off SSL? The answer is no. I didn't. It was already turned off. We don't need security around here. And in your organization, it's probably turned off too, because then you'd have to set up certificates or say, oh, just trust the certificate anyways. And your IT guy will be like, why do we even need TLS if we're going to trust any certificate? Anybody throws it in anyways. So it's not going to be set. And if it is, just turn it off, because you're an administrator of the printer now. You are the supervisor. All right. Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Technique number 2, simple mail transfer protocol. So this is otherwise known as email. Who here has an email account? Who? Yes. Can you give me your email account? Asking for a friend. All right. Almost got you. I'll send you a link later. Just click on it. So these printers often will send email, just like I was suggesting. So first we look up the email address, and then we send the email. Well, often, so in this particular case, I didn't have, they didn't set up LDAP. So this is, I'm now into a Kyocera. I'm trying to treat all of these printer manufacturers equally because I'm not trying to pick off one. I found problems in every single one. So I'm trying to use a different manufacturer with each example because you'll find just terrible things everywhere. And so in this particular case, they didn't have LDAP set up. Instead, this is a smaller to mid-sized organization. They had everyone's email address in address book entries. So all you had to do is walk up and see your name, hit a button. So your name's already there, you just hit a button. Well, that's no fun if I wanted an LDAP credential, but this thing still has to send email. When you send an email from a printer, what do you have to do? You have to talk to an email server. Well, with COVID, one of the best things that happened was the entire world moved to Office 365. Do you think Office 365 lets you just connect up to them and send an email? No, well, we'll get there. We're getting there. That's another example later. Often, though, it needs a username and password, right? And so we want the username and password. And so here's the case. So this is an SMTP server setup where it's going to go to smtp.office365.com, which doesn't, you can't allow list that so you can not use credentials. You'd have to use your Office Protect IP to do that. But so in this case, the printer's logging into an email service, and so we're going to want to change that mail server. Instead of being Office 365, we're going to want it to be our email server, our evil email server. And right down here, you see the login username and the login password. Those are the credentials we want to steal, right? So there's a username and password. You think you can right-click view source and get that password, but it's not there. It's stars, I guarantee it. It's not there. But, here's the best part. And then they've got a test button right there. So you just make the change, you hit the test button, you make the change back, you're done. You don't even have to save the configuration. But here's an important point. Do you see right here where it says SMTP security start TLS? That means it's secure. So what do we do when it's secure? That's right, we turn it off. So we just click on the configuration and say, no, we don't need security. We're going to go ahead and turn security off. So we're not going to get an encrypted username and password over the network. We're going to get it in complete plain text. And so as soon as we hit that test button, guess what happens? So I should point out, in each one of these cases, on my evil attacking server side, I have to set up something that's going to catch these credentials. So in this particular case, I'm running a tool called Responder. It just was super easy. It'll sit there and listen. It'll listen on that port 25. And if somebody shows up and gives it a password, it'll be like, hey, here's a password. And then so that I redacted out the good bits here. But this is the credentials from that printer just by hitting that, change the IP address, change the start TLS to none, hit the test button. Now I have, and this is not just an SMTP password typically. In an organization, this will be a domain account. It may not be a privileged account, but this could be a foothold into their network. And so once I'm into your network with a valid user ID and password, it'll work probably on every server. Anything that any other user can do, I can now do. And who's ever discovered at work that you've got access to stuff that it's like, wow, why do I have access to that? Because you browsed along to a file share one day and you're like, wow, I probably shouldn't have access to that. But I'm not going to tell anybody about it. It'll be fine. And then I come along and I'm like, hey, I found your backups to your vCenter with your private keys. We can talk about that another time. But at any rate, often you'll have access to things that you shouldn't have access to. And so that was that example. Now here comes the more fun one. What if there's no test button? So we're going to go back to that RICO. And in this RICO case, there was no test button. But remember this. You look at all those, see the orange? You probably can't read it, but it says cartridge almost empty, almost out of paper, paper left on output tray. These are warnings on the printer. So let's just keep track of that and think about that for later. All right. So we get back into our printer configuration now on this other printer. It's set up similarly to the first SMTP example. But and we're going to want to change the SMTP server name again. This time it was protection.outlook.com. And I want to point out a couple things. They had SSL turned off, so they already decided they didn't need security. And they also had SMTP authentication turned off. So they allowed, and anytime you're on that organization's network, you can go to their protection.outlook.com without credentials and send an email. This is, unless you only allow that printer to talk there, this is probably a finding on their network in and of itself, because then if I can get on your network, I can spam everybody in the organization, say I'm the president of the company, and you should click on my link. But in this particular case, they had SMTP authentication turned off, but you look in the SMTP authentication email address and username, they were filled out. They weren't blank. So that means at one time, they probably had authentication turned on, and they're like, whoa, we're sending clear text credentials on the network. We probably shouldn't do that. I know. I'm going to turn that off, and then we're going to be secure. So now I put on my evil server. I blacked it out because this is on another network. But this time we want security. So I actually turned it on because I want this password. I want them to be secure. I just want them to be secure. So I literally turn on the security so that they'll be secure. But there's a problem. There's a problem with this. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. You can't see it because it's not there, but there's no test button, right? Wah, wah. So what do? I have to sit here. It's 6 o'clock at night. I have to wait till tomorrow until somebody walks up and tries to scan a document? Hell no. So, remember those warnings earlier? So this is a feature that nobody ever sets up. Basically, anytime there's a problem with a printer, you can have it notify you by email. And so under that group 1, I put in my email address. And then I said, for any of these conditions, call service, out of paper, toner low. There's even a setting, there's like paper low 20%, paper low 10%. And I'm like, can there be a paper low 50%? Because I want this thing to email me as soon as I think it wants to. And so I set up all the notifications. And as soon as I hit save on this, because remember, we're almost out of paper, almost out of toner. There's like service alerts. I immediately get an email address because this printer's like, I've never told anybody, but I'm almost out of paper. I need to tell somebody right now. So I didn't have to wait till tomorrow morning for somebody to try to scan. I like literally hit it. And who wants to talk? Who wants to make a phone call right now? Yeah, this guy in the front row. He's clear. So immediately, this is responder output again, receive user ID and password. And this is the best part, this is probably why they turned off authentication. That user they had set in the printer, domain admin. So at this point, we ruled the entire network because we could do anything we wanted on any server because we were, the trusted administrator. Now here's a fun fact. Based upon our experience, we do a lot of these are called internal penetration tests, where we drop into your network. Typically, we'll give you a box. You plug it in. It's as if we walked up and plugged into your conference room. I don't have any credentials. I don't have nothing. I maybe you'll give me some IP addresses of the scope of the task, but I typically don't have any access on your network when I start. So my first goal is let's get some credentials. Let's get some access. And when I perform this attack against printers, in my experience, 40% of the time, these credentials have domain administrator access. 40% of the time. So I'm showing you, I think, 5 different printers. 2 of them were domain administrators. Yeah, how about that? That's pretty awesome. You're like, but it needs to look up stuff in Active Directory. I have to be an administrator to do that, right? No. Do you know what you know the right that you should have if you want to look up an email address? You should be able to look up email addresses. That's it. Yeah. But often you get way more than that bonus prize. All right. So let's take this to the next level. We'll take a break from going through these examples. And I want to say, okay, well, what can we really do with these stolen credentials? So let's try this stolen credential. It's sending it to Office. So this is probably an email box, right? So yeah, let's take that, copy your username and password. Let's go to Office 365 with it and log in, because it doesn't have MFA, because It had a username and password and it had to send email. And they didn't do things like set up app passwords or anything like that. So in this particular case, they, I actually went to Office 365 and I logged in and I got the inbox. And I'm like, jackpot! Because now typically in your inbox, what are you going to have there? If you're a printer, you're sending people email, you're going to get out of office notices, right? You're going to get auto responders. Not very interesting, right? But if you go to the sent items, every document that's ever been scanned and sent to the other user, it's going to have that email with the attachment. And you know the best part? It's not just from that printer, but it's from every printer in their entire organization that they use that same email credential. And so if you got 100 printers, they probably use the same credentials on all of them. So then not only do you have all the scans from that printer, but you have all the scans from every printer in that organization that it's ever sent. And you can see down here, it's pretty small, but you'll see deleted. Deleted has 487 items in it. I'm guessing it filled up. And so some administrator is like, oh, why isn't the scanner scanning? So they went to the inbox and I also saw this, or the send items, and they just deleted the send items. So they probably knew that this is an issue, right? They're sending, so they just never deleted the trash or emptied the trash can. So they're still in there. So literally you can own one printer and own them all. There can be only one. No, that's Highlander, sorry. Mixing my memes. So we covered the first two methods, a couple examples of the second method. The third one, this one's an awesome one. It's a little bit more advanced. So this one I'm going to talk about some things that, if they're over your head, stop me. I'll try to bring it back because I just do this all the time and I geek out. And Sherry will often tell me you need to explain that better. So I will. So just stop me. Anyway, so the third one is, so instead of scanning it to your email box, you can scan it to a folder on the network share. Everybody's got a share drive, and maybe they'll scan it to your own personal share, or maybe it's a departmental scanner where people share duties, right? Somebody today, I'm going to run the scanner and scan in all the mail or whatever, scan it to a file share. There's a lot of different situations I've seen and witnessed. So we're going to attack an HP this time, equal opportunity exploiter. This HP had no authentication, and I think even when I Googled it, they're like, oh yeah, just hit login if it asks for credentials, which this one clearly did not. Is wide open. And so I went to the network folder setup in this. So in this particular case, it didn't send emails. They're smart. They weren't sending email. They didn't do LDAP lookup because they weren't sending email. But they had a network share. And they even said, scan to the S drive. So even when I'm done, I know the S drive must be the share drive, right? Everybody's got an S drive in their organization, right? Am I right? Yeah. I'm right. So in this particular case, I already see not only is there an edit button, but there's a test button. So this is going to be great. As soon as I modify the configuration, I'm going to be able to test it right away. And so right away, you'll see there's this network path value right there. So you'll see whack, which is a technical term for //, and then the name of the server, and then the share name where it's going to drop off. And this particular printer is going to drop off everything as a PDF into this folder, network folder called scans. And then down here, we have the credentials we want to steal. So this one will have basically their domain and then /, in this case, it was eCopy or something like that. And then there's a password. Now, in this particular case, and then we hit the test button. It's so awesome. This particular case, it's not going to send us clear text credentials. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, and it may or may not be successful for you, depending on your resources available. But it's going to do an NTLM v2 handshake. So what this is this is a Microsoft protocol. There's NTLM v1, and then there's v2, and then now there's Kerberos. So, but at any rate, most printers will all talk NTLM v2 when they try to talk to you or save to the network share. And in this particular case, I'll set up in this case a responder, and it'll listen on port 445, and it will reach out and say, "Hey, I want to do a login with you." It's this dance where I don't send the password over the network, but the server will send me a challenge, and then I'll encrypt it with the clear text password that I know, and then I'll prove to you that I know the password and you know the password, and then without sending the password over the network, we can prove that that we have access, right? And then the server will let you in. I don't know the password, so I literally will respond back like, yeah, we did this handshake, but that's not the right password. But in the meantime, I have that transcript, right? I've got that NTLMv2 hash, right? So with this hash, then we can't just use that. There are some other techniques where I could relay this to unsigned servers and things like that. Often that actually doesn't work with printers because sometimes they actually will require client SMB signing, and you could drop the MIC. You can do all sorts of fun stuff. But in this particular case, I'm just straight up capturing that hash, and then I'm going to crack it. So at LMG, we've got a bunch of GPUs. So we can take hashes. So if you've got a hash password, basically password hashes are one way. You can't take a hash and be like, I'm going to decrypt that, and now I'm going to have that password in clear text. You actually have to guess, right? So you're going to use that challenge, and you're going to guess. And we have, I think, 1080s, so they're actually kind of dated now. So, but we can guess about almost 10 billion passwords per second with our password cracker. So we're going to guess as long as it takes until we can crack that password. And sometimes it takes hours, sometimes it takes days. This time it took me 1.5 seconds mostly to initialize the cards because the password was Canon1. And so I like literally, we got this hash, threw it in the cracker. I'm like, it's done. Like, okay, so now we have credentials on the network. This was an HP, but yeah, oh. Thank you for pointing that out. So let me tell you the story of what probably happened. They used to have a Canon, and they replaced it with an HP. But we shouldn't change the password. We should take the Canon password and move it to the HP, because we don't want to break anything. Well, yeah, that's a good point. That doesn't meet the minimum requirements. This one didn't even have a cap. Oh, who gets the shot glass? Oh, read. Boom. Oh, and here you go. Wait for it. Put this on your desk at HBS. Anyways, I love the people. Actually, I love HBS. They're a great organization. If any of the HBS sales guys are in the house, it's been a long time. You should reach out. So this is how I attack file sharing. So sometimes, if they actually have a good password, chances are this won't be successful for me. There are chances where this is a credential that could be high value credential and it could be well secured. I will try other approaches. We won't get into those details. I alluded to I could relay this if you've got some other servers in your network that aren't configured the way that they should be, and I could potentially turn this into access to something else. But in this case, like I said, you crack the password and then you move on. Now I've got domain credentials. So beyond printers, this is the last example of a printer. Now, what's really awesome is you can take these same techniques and tactics with other devices on your network. I was in another organization probably a year ago now that they had a Crestron, and that Crestron had a wall unit outside the conference room that had the calendar of that room that it pulled from Office 365. And so I logged in with default credentials to the Crestron, and I said, well, your calendar URL isn't there anymore. It's over here. And it presented me the credentials to the Office 365 calendar. But in this particular case, we're looking at a super micro server. So this is like an IPMI web interface. It's lagged, I didn't realize. IPMI web interface that had default credentials to get into it. So once we got into it, it was like admin or something like that. We noticed, and it's really hard to see in this picture, but they set up this server using an ISO. IPMI is like a baseband install thing. Like you can reboot the server, it's hung. You could get a local console. I don't remember what IPMI stands for. I should have Googled it and put it on here. I apologize. Google it for yourself. But But you can like reboot the server, you can rebuild the server, like maybe you got ransomware, you could rebuild it right from the IPMI interface. You could pop in a virtual CD-ROM to it, and you can do all sorts of kind of fun stuff with it that's lower than the operating system, right? So imagine you've got a server on the network. That server is running on that hardware. That hardware has its own server built in that can help you manage the server. So this is the management interface of that physical hardware. In this case, it's a Supermicro. Okay, so in this particular case, they set it up to pull a true NAS ISO from a network share, just like in our previous example. I need an advanced slide. So that's the credential we want to steal. The share host, we changed that, of course, to our server. It's very similar to that last file sharing example where it'll do an NTLM v2 handshake. In this particular case, we got a handshake. We couldn't crack that password. It was a secure password because that username was a domain administrator. But in this particular case, IPMI had a way that we could download the configuration, then forensically recover that password in clear text directly from the backup of the config of the Supermicro. So you could actually go to the configuration tab and download the config. So there may be multiple avenues. In this particular case, we did the handshake, we got the hash, just like the file share example. We couldn't crack it. We're like, and then Emily, one of my pen testers, she's amazing. She's like, but I got the password because I downloaded the configuration and forensically recovered it. So we're like, yes. And then we're a domain administrator and won the day. So now you know why I love printers. Actually, all things, Internet of Things on your network. And I hope you're starting to get an appreciation for them too. All right, so here's what we did, right? Let's take a little sigh of review. Number one, printers are everywhere. Pass-back attacks, right? We did email, we did SMTP file shares, and then we took it beyond printers. We can do other things on your network that might have default credentials that you think, oh, that shouldn't be a big deal, and it's a big deal. And now we're going to talk about how can we protect your printers, right? So I've got a few things that I recommend. You'll feel free to add if you've got like, hey, this is a better thing you should do than what you're saying, tell me. Segment your network, right? Why should a regular user on your network have access to the management interface? The answer is they shouldn't, right? They should be able to print to it. And actually, they probably shouldn't even be able to print directly to it. They should be able to print to the print server, and print server should have access to it. But not splitting hairs, you should keep your users away from the management interfaces because sometimes your users might be me. So do that. Require authentication on your printer interfaces. All of these printers, even though they didn't have authentication or they had some level of weak authentication set up, they all have the ability to have authentication. You just have to turn it on. And then require encryption for authentication because sometimes I can play man-in-the-middle on your network. And then here's a really cool thing. And when I gave this talk a week ago, somebody brought it up right ahead of time. They're like, wait, that SMTP example, why didn't you set up an app password? And this is a little known thing. I've only run into it on a couple networks. Actually, one network was really awesome. Those credentials didn't actually exist in Active Directory. They only existed in their Office 365 tenant. That was awesome. Good work out of them. Still own their Office 365 interface. But there was another case where that password that they used that I got in clear text, do you know what it was allowed to do? Send an email. Do you know what it couldn't do? Anything else. It wouldn't let me log into the mailbox. In fact, when I used that password log in the mailbox, Office 365 was like, yeah, you need to use your password, not the app password to log into this interface. I'm like, yeah, like I was so thrilled when I saw that. I'm like, this is going in the presentation because you don't see that very often. And when you do see it, it's pretty awesome when organizations think about, these threat vectors, or maybe they got abused by somebody like me a year ago and they fixed it. Because we're coming back to do it again. Deploy some kind of identity and access management solution so you can detect like, hey, one thing I have never, ever seen on one of these printers set up, but they all have it, syslog. You know what syslog is? Syslog is like when you do a thing to the printer, it sends a message to a centralized repository that says, hey, someone just logged into the admin interface, or someone just modified this configuration. Do you know what you can do when you detect that somebody logged into the admin interface? Let somebody know. Like how often do people log into that interface? Hopefully never, right? And if they do, that's probably an event that somebody should know about. And I've never seen a printer set up to syslog. So syslog your servers. It's real easy. You probably have one sitting around catching your Splunk logs already anyways, right? So just set your printers to log. And then, and the last thing I think you should do is burn your printers. So go office space on your printers, PC load letter, the whole thing with a baseball bat. Do that, because who needs printers these days? You can do everything electronically anyways. All right. So that's all I've got for these things. I do want to, if nobody minds, I'm actually giving my first class ever in June. And so pen testing for system administrators, hack yourself first, right? So that that first pen test that come into your organization, you're gonna give my guys a hard time, my guys and ladies. I love it when you come on you get on the network and you fire up all the standard tools where we get domain admin in 10 minutes. You're like, crap, none of this works. That's what I want, right? I want you guys to fix your network. So we want to teach you guys how to hack your own organization so you can fix it. So we're going to give a class on how to do that, right? In person in Des Moines, Iowa on June 7th, 2023. It's a Wednesday. I have my kids. I'm in town, so it's great. And we have a promo code. So if you want a discount from it, actually, I don't even see how much it costs. It's $1 billion. No, I think it's very reasonable. But if you want 10% off, promo code, write that down, SecDSM Pen 10. You'll get whatever. I think there's an early bird discount if you register by end of April. But at any rate, if you're interested, sign up for the class. It'll be this, but all day. You excited? Because I really want you to be excited. All right. So that's all I've got. Like I said, reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, concerns. I actually want to open the floor up because I've got 10 more shot glasses, maybe a dozen shot glasses left. So anybody that's got a great question, yeah, back in the back. So the question was, with the IPMI example, did I reboot the server in order to get that? No, I hit the mount button. That's all I did. So it's basically the equivalent of a test button. Great question. Here you go. Yes. Almost hurt somebody. So sorry if I hurt you. Any other question? Yeah, in the front. It's all relative. So I actually have only been a penetration tester professionally for a year and a half. But I've been on the blue team for 20 years, right? Let's say it's only been 20 years. So I've misconfigured a lot of networks in a lot of these ways, right? So when I'm looking at it as an attacker, I'd be like, this is how I would have screwed it up back in the day. You think they did. Yeah, they did. So pen testing is easy. Everything is easy as long as you understand it, right? It's, what's a quote? You say it all the time, Brandon. Every problem is shallow if you understand it deeply enough. All right, Brandon's not nearly as pathetic as I So Brandon said nothing is improved in 20 effing years. Yeah, question. When am I going to come and do another talk? Great question. I don't know. I mean, throw some ideas out there. I do have a talk idea that Sherry wants me to give. She's been begging me for at least 4 years now. Private keys in public places. I've been building a warehouse of, hey, I found this private key on this firmware that everybody gets. Hey, yeah, Nick and I, right? You guys remember Nick and I did a thing, 2 years ago? Where's Nick? Well, Nick is an amazing guy. I love there. No, I thought Nick was walking in the room. But yeah, we did some stuff with some Netgear. So that one we just went straight up public because we knew Netgear would never fix it if we didn't. But beyond that, I just recently, Fortinet, finally after 3 years, fixed a problem that I found. They had to make an architectural change from a corporate level to solve the problem because they had Apple private keys in all of their firewalls. So there's a lot of things that organizations have to do, but I've got literally a warehouse full of private keys that I found. And some vendors I've told, some I haven't. Sometimes it's really helpful if you can walk in and be like, oh, you're using that backup product? Sweet. At any rate, so maybe I can give that talk. I don't know. I have to write it. I'm not a good writer. I have to make slides and stuff. I really. Sherry helped me a lot. I love, that's what I love. I love, making slides together late at night. Now you know our geeky lives. Any other good questions before we wrap up? Yeah. If I see this, so the question is if I see this printer, I know I'm getting into it. Brother. Yep, 100% brother. Here you go. Heads up. Oh, yeah, nice catch. This shot glass thing's working out great. Yeah, in the front. Have I run into the Rico backdoor user for technical? No, I have not. Please tell me more. So, let's. Okay, you can tell me later. That's fine. But I'd rather just share it with the whole world because then they're going to fix it. All right. Well, we'll have to talk later. I'm excited because there you go. Love it. Yeah. Information wants to be free. No more secrets. Too many secrets? I can never get it right. I get corrected all the time. Anybody else? Yeah, right. Oh, so the Reed asked, if you change the host name, should we keep the same credentials? No, there was one instance on one printer. It was actually an HP where if you changed the host name, it cleared out the credentials. And I was like, holy hell, that's great. So I didn't save that config because I'm like, I don't want to go to the client and explain how their printer doesn't know its password anymore. They'll think I'm an idiot. But I then went to the LDAP interface. It didn't do it on that side. So there's two different teams of developers. The LDAP team didn't clear out password, but the SMTP team did. So. Oh, I don't know why not. I mean, yeah. Well, that's a good point. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, here's the question: which of these should have? What should the printer do the first time you? What's that? Oh, what was the question? Oh, Raspberry Pi. Yeah, apparently it got a CVE for its default credential of what, Raspberry and Pi, or Pi and Raspberry, or whatever it is. It's Pi. I think it's Raspberry. So, why aren't these printers CVE worthy? Well, it's a great question. I mean, honestly, as soon as you boot it up, it should be like, I don't have a default credential. Give me one. That's what they should do. They should do, but nobody does that. Some, and actually very few security products even do that. They're getting more and more often they're doing that. More questions? Who wants to go run out and call their IT admin, or you are the IT admin, you're going to be like, dude, we got to change this tomorrow. I gave this talk last week, and I came into work on Friday morning, and to multiple people emailing me about, like, I just did these things last night because I was so worried. So it's okay. It will come down. Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Oh, do I ever have to change the DNS on the stack? No, that's usually more protected often, if it is protected, and often it's set by DHCP. So the question was, do I ever have to change the DNS? I've never had to change the DNS, but that's a great idea. like change the DNS and then like, oh no, Office 365 is me. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. That'd be another. Yeah, let's go break in your printers that way and change it. And let's amend to this. Let's just keep going. I bet we can come up with 24 ways that we can get passwords out of these printers. I love it. Anybody? Oh, here. And yes, I could be a quarterback. All right, just for everybody watching online, I totally made that throw. Anybody else? Otherwise, yeah. This is the fun. This is like I literally took all these screenshots in the last 2 months. Like I've been doing this for a year and a half, and I think the first one I did with this on was probably a year and a half ago. And I literally got credentials, and they make websites in Amazon. And so that credential from the printer, I went to all their file shares, and I said, hey, what do I have access to? And I found access to the source code for some of these web apps. You know what was in access to the source code? AWS root credentials that then I could go to their AWS environment and compromise all the things. So, like I said, not only do, even if it's a low-level user that you think, oh, it's just a low-level user, it shouldn't be able to do anything. Often, even your low-level users on your network have access to things they shouldn't. And so, come hire us or something. It doesn't matter. We'll find all those things for you. Anyways, thank you so much for the time. Hand it back over to you.